Greetings, ladies and metal-gents, and welcome to this narration of the web series The Nature of Predators. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 64. Memory Transcription, Captain Calsum, Krakotl Alliance Command. Date, Standardized Human Time, October 22nd, 2136. The line between dream and consciousness grew blurry. I slipped between waking moments in delirium. Whatever drugs I was given seemed designed to keep me out of it, but there were brief flashes of humans putting my wings back into place. Rumbling voices cascaded around me and filled me with the urge to claw my way to the surface. The vivid dreams of my brain in anguish. My near-death experience had turned decades of rotten memories into a jumbled casserole. There had been one nightmarish case where we found an elderly Krakotl ripped apart in her backyard. With a cruel sense of humor, my dream state decided to reenact the scene. Standing over the rotting corpse and seeing the innards tugged at her stomach was the abyssal image of evil. Extermination officers were supposed to act in time to prevent these occurrences. I could feel a sour swell in my beak. It was followed by a scorching sensation as I regurgitated my meager lunch. My partners insisted on immediately torching the area. This body was beyond burial salvaging. The victim's family would understand. Some faint remembrance told me that this was the case that made me transfer to the military. We never found the predator. I looked, obsessed, ran down every lead. Over here! A voice hissed on the wind. My wings flapped in urgency as I sailed off in the direction of the call. All I wanted was to fry the animal that would commit such a heinous deed. This had been the only predator I ever hated. My standard practice was to refrain from emotional judgments. It wasn't a hunter's fault for being born, but its existence of whatever did this was offensive to me as the Oxal. The scenery blended together with that dreamlike passage of time. The abrupt change wasn't jarring in the moment. Without warning, I was buffeted down by a brutal gust of wind. The forest clearing around me looked quite familiar, and my instincts screamed that something wasn't right. There was a neon fabric dome, a sapient-built structure, which tickled something in my mind. Invisible forces tugged the entrance flap open, as though inviting me in. I inched closer, despite wanting to back away, on legs that felt like concrete pylons. Violet Krakotl blood formed a thin trail across the grass, which returned a sliver of my resolve. A predator like this could not be allowed to reproduce under any circumstances. The bravado it had to waltz into our settlements meant that it was a true abomination. My eyes were not prepared for the sight that awaited. Inside, there was a crouched and lanky brown-skinned creature, which I recognized as an adult human. The predator was chowing down on a Krakotl's gullet, and blood was smeared on its chin. How had an alien sapient gotten out there? It looked up as I entered, with feathers jammed between bloodied canines. Those brown eyes, with that awful pleading quality still present. It belonged to Arjun. This must be that kid, all grown up, and now as ugly as the rest of his freakish race. Humans are not vicious, Arjun whined, in the childish register that didn't match its development. You're brainwashed, Calsum. I tried to raise my flamethrower, but my wings wouldn't move. The predator bared its teeth, inching closer. I should have killed the conniving demon while I had a chance. It didn't matter that humans were capable of empathy, when it was a selective concept that could be turned off like a light switch. What a curse, to be given a gift of sapience, yet to have such an atrocious form. The hideous monster sprang forward. Its unrivaled endurance meant that its bloodlust would never be sated. Any compassion was overridden by the instinct much stronger. That's what their history told us would happen all along. The Federation needed to kill as many humans as possible, but I had forgotten that. Its clawless fingers pressed into my throat, and all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. I'm gonna kill you, I shrieked, snapping upright. Savages! My head spun, and I realized I was in a ventilated building. The cool metal beneath my spine suggested that I was on some sort of operating table. At least, I hoped that was what the tiny knives were for. My wing was bound in some sort of plaster, and gauze was wrapped around my aching neck. This must be somewhere amidst the predator-infested lands of Earth. The realization that it was a dream provided immeasurable relief. Thinking about the details, it was a senseless nightmare. Social hunters wouldn't wander and pick us off alone. Still, I couldn't help feeling uneasy at the peak of the future. It was tough to picture the human kid developing and encroaching on the Federation worlds with his brethren. I slid my talons off the table, clicking around on wobbly feet. Why had Argent's father listened to its son's plea to spare me? Weren't the primates furious about the cities we destroyed? Argent didn't deserve to suffer, but maybe I should have put him down. If I knew humans were such brutal hunters, their compassion wouldn't have swayed me. Those drawn-out methods are far worse than the Arxals. With a bit of hesitancy, I tested the door handle. It was unlocked. The humans kept their structures more sanitary than I expected. From creatures accustomed to constant blood and death, there wasn't any reek of predation, or biological markers left to intimidate me. Perhaps the Terrans realized I showed mercy to their kid and stayed their hand. They were a cogent species, not the non-sapient terror I saw in my nightmare. Still, I felt like I should be bound or caged. Maybe the primates were testing whether I could be enslaved. That was the only reason I could fathom why they'd patched me up. Thoughts of Thyon and the only surviving member of my party raced through my mind. It begged the question of how long I'd been out and whether that Marcos faction had sniped him. As I turned into the wider area, a gun was jabbed inches from my face. An adult human watched with a neutral expression, but I could see the hunger that lurked in those pupils. The alien predator looked like the result of a disastrous lab experiment, with his exposed face and glistening skin. I felt sorry for the prey racers like the snake that had to deal with these things marching around. What was that noise? You're going to kill me? Its eyes glowed in the middling light, and its dry lips tensed. That must be the cue that it wanted blood to wet them. I encourage you to try, bird. I squeezed my eyes shut. Was nightmare. There's no point in killing you now. We failed. Calsum thinks we're going to conquer them, Dad. Argent offered from atop a footstool. Well, I don't think we'll have that chance, kiddo. The Greys beat us to the punch, or so I hear. Solemnness clasped my heart as I thought of the undefended Nishtal. The Arxal wouldn't pass up a golden opportunity if it was brought to their attention. There hadn't been time to dwell on the reptiles' arrival at Earth, but it told us a lot about the humans. The fact that the Terrans were a feeding people who cared for each other hadn't stopped them from jumping in bed with the antithesis. You are dangerous, and still I have shown you mercy time and again. My home is gone. Do what you think you must, human, I grumbled. The father peeled back his plump lip. The name's Minaj. You have a sick idea of mercy, but my son is alive because of you. That's the only reason I'm not ending you myself. Got it? I see. It is difficult to look at a sapient in the eye and kill it, Minaj. Even for one of your spawn. What happens to me doesn't matter. I won't resist the execution squad. Come on, resist a little. I got wildlife doctors to treat you and your pal with some reluctance. They gave in eventually, on the condition that I'd turn you over to the UN forces once you are stable. Wait, my pal? Argent told me where to find him. Pure genius hiding spot. Look under the bedsheet, behind me. The full-grown human was positioned right and obstruct my vision. On closer inspection, the tubes and wires behind the predator were attached to a fossil officer. Horror coursed through my veins. Thyon was missing an arm. The jagged edge around his shoulder stump suggested teeth had gnawed them off. Minaj must have gotten too hungry around the injured officer and experienced the lab in its control. I know it must be tough for a predator to stitch together a wounded prey animal who was a comer, but my gosh. You ate Thyon! I checked both my wings and squawked panic. The human scalpels could have shaved off tiny bits of flesh, in fractions that I couldn't notice. You are just like the Arxal! Minaj snorted. Damn, you're a fecking idiot. Human teeth aren't big enough. Certainly not to do that so cleanly. That? Yes, you're a predator. Then you fed him to the tigers, I suppose. Actually, it was the leopards that got him. Same family as tigers, but with spots instead of stripes. Would have had nothing left but crumbs, except that I showed up when it was picking at him. Argent was just upset about it, else I would have just let nature run its course. You're lying. We placed him in a tree. There is no way land predators could have gotten to him. Manoj pulled up a clip on his holopad with a snarl born of cruel amusement. The human set the device down on the table, and I leaned over it hesitantly. A massive beast with mottled pelt was walking up a vertical trunk, defying gravity with ease. Sinister forepaws hugged the bark's circumference, while the hind legs moved like a descending ladder rungs. The predator's speed quickened without warning, and its hind legs pushed off. It leapt onto a branch in an adjacent tree, faster than any landwalker should be able to. I suppose those leopards were more than capable of scaling greenery in a blink. The only reason I could conjure why the Terrans kept such a beast alive was their arboreal roots. The aerial terrorization might be relatable to them. Manoj had shown me that they were quite willing to scale forest trunks themselves. The tiger reserve makes sense now. The humans respect this family of animals because they recognize the bestial common ground. The adult predator leaned back. So we reduced the drugs, keeping Thayon in a medically induced coma. He's already starting to stir. This should be good. I assumed that you would want revenge, Manoj, and I know that it's just how humans are. But please, take it out on me. I gave the orders. I deserve your wrath. All Thayon wanted was to stop predators from hitting any more worlds. We couldn't sleep at night, knowing that there was another Arxor out there. We are not the Arxor. Nobody understands that but me. I always saw your redemptive qualities and how unique humans were. I wish that was enough. We both know coexistence wasn't an option. I'm sorry that it had to be like this. Truly. It didn't have to be like this at all. We wanted peace, to fight alongside you, and you committed genocide against us for it. I wonder if there could have been another way. Human conquest is as inevitable as your growth. There is no future generations for any other race, with you alive. The human skull was growing more visceral by the second. I wondered if it was a reconsidering its promise to Argent to spare me. My exterminator training faltered as its narrowed eyes bore into my skull. A fearful squawk bubbled in my throat, but I fought to ground myself. Beneath its anger, pain manifested in its increasingly hostile posture. The skin of its hands went tight around the bone knobs, which suggested waning control. My thoughts wandered to how Argent had appealed to my morality and claimed Terran religions called for natural compassion. I reminded myself that those emotions were genuine. They didn't just disappear at adulthood. This father, monstrous as it was, resisted murderous urges in favor of its bond with its son. Perhaps if I appealed to that side and continued to treat this ghastly beast with dignity, I could save Thayon. Extermination officer is a dangerous job, where you're always on call. Not good for settling down, so I never had kids, I stammered. I've killed a lot more living beings than I'd like to recall. But I have to believe that somewhere, for how we slowed Earth's expansion, there is a hatchling who lived to adulthood. A low rumble emanated from a notch. There's millions of children on both worlds who are dead right now because of you trying to kill us. All for our eye placement. Human, your eye placement is a symptom of a bigger problem. Predators do have forward-facing eyes, but it's much deeper than that. That's like saying that a virus is to be eradicated for its spike proteins. Its actions, the infection and spread, are the issue. The adult human adjusted its rectangular object, which appeared to be a video camera. A red light blinked by the lens, and I guessed I was being recorded. That was a sensible action for intelligence purposes. Manoj bared yellow teeth, approaching me with shuffling steps. It traced an oily finger across my beak with a chuckle, before pointing my nose towards the camera. Say hello to the people of planet Earth, the predator sneered. You're being broadcast to social media right now, wherever the internet still functions. Look, the eventual millions who'll see this in the eye and repeat your little virus line. I squeezed my eyes shut. You're angry. I don't hate humans for what they are. It wasn't personal. It's just the reality of the situation. It sure felt personal, Drumstick. I happened to find footage floating around from the UN raids, a crocodile transmission sent to the downed ship. Those pink markings on this fella's beak look awful similar to yours, don't they? The Terran pulled up another video on his holopad. I recognized my own visage on the feed. An allied ship must have intercepted the hail we sent to the downed human, who had shown us a picture of its family. Pity swelled in my throat as I thought of the offspring in its image. Those 3 primates had looked younger than Arjun, and now were left without a parent. For I knew they died in the bombing, and the UN pilot had sacrificed itself in vain. Surrender yourself to our custody peacefully, and I'll see that you survive. The cadence of my voice was overlaid by static interference. You can ensure that your culture is remembered. Minaj offered a chilling grin, its alien features giving off contradicting signals. That's your mercy, Calsum. The perfect view of the destruction of your planet, your culture, and everyone you cared about. Meanwhile, you're a prisoner among people who want your kind exterminated forever. An exhibit in Twisted Museum. I wanted someone to study your culture. I wanted you to be remembered. Back off! We can execute you, and that decision won't be up to me. But my suggestion, people of Earth, let's give him the same mercy he offered to one of ours. Let him witness the destruction of Nishtal in HD, while he keeps him locked up to document Krakotl culture. My eyes shifted to the floor. There was never such an undercurrent of cruelty in my offering. I had been trying to minimize their suffering, while Minaj aimed to twist the knife. Krakotl culture was well documented by every Federation race, so it was not in jeopardy of vanishing from the records. There was no point in that existence. The humans viewing this video would have demanded more violent end for me, wouldn't they? A motor revved outside the compound, and predatory shouts rippled through the air. Those must be the UN soldiers picking me up. I shot a final glance at Arjun, who was watching me with interest. The human kid raised a clawless hand as we locked eyes. Perhaps this was some gesture of farewell, like the tail signals of many species. The foresight of Arjun as a human adult floated through my mind. I doubted I would ever see him again, but if I did, he would be something unrecognizable. These creatures grew out of the tolerable phase much too quick. Fighting off tears, I lifted my uninjured wing to him. An explosive noise at the door flying off its hinges pierced the air. Terrence couldn't do anything quietly. "Goodbye, little predator," I whispered. "Don't go scaring any more snakes." Dark fabric enveloped my head before I knew what was happening. Pure terror coursed through my veins, and the sheer number of humans I sensed around me. This was the largest concentration of predators I dealt with in my life. Part of me hoped that they would take me as a meal, instead of skewing my mercy into a revenge fantasy. End of chapter. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Barky, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon W.R.E, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.